Morning, everybody. We'll get started here in just a minute. Still having computer problems. Interesting. This has not been like this before. So I'm having to check some things to see what in the world's going on here. Welcome, everyone. I hope you had a great Valentine's Day and that you remembered your loved ones and made sure that they knew that they were in your heart and mind. And as usual, just let me know if the sound is good. The picture may waver back and forth a little bit, but hopefully the sound will be good. And I've got the modulation down a little bit, the gain, so hopefully we're not going to get that scratchiness that we've had before. Of course, I'm Roy Potter, and this is the live stream version of the Potter Expositor. Again, thank you for coming. I appreciate you for doing that. You'll notice that the name of this broadcast, this live stream, is Omission. And that's because sometimes, we hear about lies of commission, but of course then there are lies of omission. And that's going on a lot right now. I'm not going to be able to cover it all because so much is being dropped, not just out of the mainstream media, but I'm finding it's not in the alternative media either, and I'm not sure I understand why that is. It's almost like it's, again, and I don't want to accuse anyone, but it just seems like that there's a concerted effort to shut down information across the spectrum, and we know that that's the case, but it's troubling when you see it in so many places. All right, so let me get the chat up here. Again, I don't know if I'll be able to pay attention to this very much. Let's get started in some of the things that I think that are important right now. Again, we get tunnel vision and we're watching one thing, one media outlet, one source, whatever, and then they capture us and we're not really doing any other actual research and checking on our own. And that happens a lot. And it's easy to do. They're wearing us out. I think if any of you have been following me for any length of time, I told you that these types of propaganda, information wars, psychological operations, those types of things, they actually mirror the same tactics, the same principles that I've talked about before that they use on the battlefield. They're called the principles of war. And you can do the same thing with intelligence operations, propaganda, psychological operations, things like that, that you do with troops. You can massively attack, overrun a position because you've just overwhelmed them with mass. And that's kind of the one that's happening now, but it's on frivolous information by and large. But they give you so much so fast that you can't digest it, you can't process it. And I've talked about that several times. Any of you military out there, if you haven't been MI or something related to that, you're aware of the principles of war probably, on the battlefield in actual combat. But the application, think now words and minds and hearts. And apply those to the same thing, to that type of battle, and you'll kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. So the media is inundating us with all kinds of things, and some of the important stuff is slipping through the cracks. Let's talk about the situation in North Korea. It seems to be winding down, but I'm not certain that that's the case, because the Chinese about a week ago sent 300,000 troops thereabouts on their border with North Korea. And we've been told, well, that's because, they're worried about the refugees. Well, Russia has done the same thing. They're not as large a force, but on their border area with North Korea, they're doing the same thing, not quite at the same level as the Chinese, but it's still quite serious if we think about it. So that is still an ongoing situation, and we're just not hearing a whole lot. It's like the whole narrative has changed to something else. And in the middle of all of this, we have the Florida shooting. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. I just wanted you to know that I'm not going to avoid that. if you've been watching it, you'll notice that this one is entirely different than the Sandy Hook shooting. We've got, you know, gurneys, ambulances, people laying down. Sandy Hook thing, we didn't see anybody being brought out of there, right? Some other anomalies too, but we're going to concentrate on the Florida thing when I bring that up. The other thing that's happening, and you know, I like to use the world. You know, I use a world map because I was trained to use maps to look and see, you know, where things are, because the activities on the map, you know, in the old days, like in World War II, they had those big situational maps. Now it's all done by computers, although they'll still put up a big screen for the commander to see. But you know, they'll show where units are and different things, so that you can maneuver. You maneuver large armies and things very similarly to the way you do a small infantry squad. It's very similar, actually, in a lot of ways. Well, we're still seeing the provocation against Russia. Now, I want to point out, you know, I don't trust the Russian politicians any more than I do the American. You got to understand that the bottom line is control of resources, money, people, and even minds and hearts now. And along those same lines, we continue to encroach on Russia's part of the world. And in my view, unnecessarily so. The real threat is China. If we would back off of Russia, not saying you don't have to keep an eye on them. I mean, you know, in your neighborhood, think about it. You know, your neighborhood is okay, right? But you still should lock your doors, right? You still need to be aware of maybe that kid across the street that might take your wheel nuts off your car, you know, or scratch your paint or try to break into your house. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to take defensive measures, and that's important. But looks like somebody stopped the chat here. Isn't that interesting? Okay, well, maybe it's just slowed down a lot. Maybe that's a good thing. So anyway, we don't allow those kinds of encroachments in our hemisphere. I mean, look at Venezuela. You know, there's talk of invading Venezuela. I'm not certain that that's really going to happen. I think that's mostly propaganda from Venezuelan political bureaucracy. But certainly there are black ops going on there by our illustrious and ever concerned for everybody's safety CIA. But you know, we don't allow those encroachments. That's what the Cuban Missile Crisis was in 1962. Okay, that was what that was all about. You're not going to come into this hemisphere, and yet we feel somehow okay by going and surrounding Russia in their sphere of influence. Well, that's a provocation. That's like sticking your finger in the eye of a bear. As I've said, Trump ran on the principle of normalizing relations with Russia. The old Reagan thing would still apply, you know, trust but verify. But that's not what we're doing. And then you got the situation in Syria to add on top of that, where they used some information, I brought it up several live streams ago, where they said that Russian contractors attacked the American positions, the American outpost. And then they justify that by doing these airstrikes that killed all these Russians and Syrians. There are people in control that Trump either doesn't have control of, or something worse than that. And I'm not going to go there because I still want to trust what I hope is true. But as I've said for a long time, rhetoric has to match what goes on the ground. And I don't. A lot of people say, you know, you're trying to rush Trump. Even Mike Adams came out with an article here about 2 or 3 days ago, I believe. One of the Twitter people sent it to me, and I appreciate it. Usually I watch Mike pretty close, but I've been on some other things, as you know. And Mike brings up the fact that, wow, you know, it looks like they really are getting ready for a civil war. If they call her Hillary, that'll kick it off because, of course, all her followers who think she's an angel will go bonkers. And I know that. Certain parts of this subduing of the deep state and the traitors in our government, it has to be done delicately, and I've said that. It might not be possible to get Hillary right away, but there is no excuse. There is no reason for her lowerlings, her underlings to be grabbed right now. There's plenty of evidence, both in the FBI, the DOJ, the State Department. I mean, we could go down the list. Trump doesn't have to go after the top folks, okay? Like Hillary, like Holder, like Obama. But he needs to grab some of these other people because they're enemy combatants in the true sense of the term. They are fighting against him, the Constitutional Republic of the United States, and they're seeking to overthrow it. A token, if nothing else, a token arrest of a high-profile figure must be done. Yeah, it's going to set the left off, not as much as if they took Hillary. Hillary can be down the line, as Mike Adams said, but if we're not careful, we're going to lose the initiative. And no, I don't know what Trump's doing behind the scenes, but this omission of information, both in the mainstream and now the alternative media, disturbs me. I don't like that. That means that there's suppression going on of information in places that maybe it hasn't before. So along that same line, let's talk about the Florida shooting, because these distractions will come up when other things are going on. You know, the magic, right? The magician will show you what's going on here while they do whatever they're really doing over here. That's an old game. It's been played for a long time. Well, this Florida shooting is obviously something that's really happened. It's not a staged thing. I'm not saying that, like Vegas, it couldn't have had staged aspects, which I'm going to talk about something along those lines here in a minute. But it's a real shooting. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this thing, we talked about how the differences between this school shooting are and the one at Sandy Hook, the presence of the obvious presence of medical personnel, the obvious presence of injured, real activity that doesn't feel or look like a drill. Where the Sandy Hook thing felt and looked like a drill, no bodies, no blood. We have phone coverage inside the school this time. You see? But that's not to say that somebody didn't crank up this 19-year-old kid. Now, I've seen different information. Somebody out there might know better than myself that this kid had his different social media networks, and that he talked about the Muslim war cry, Allahu Akbar, right? I don't know that for certain, and maybe Trump doesn't either. But it's noticeable that it's not being discussed in the mainstream media. It's focusing, of course, on a crazy kid who got his hands on a gun. Tragic, absolutely. Could he have been wound up, though, like a lot of the other mass shooters we've had lately in the last few years? You know, the Aurora shooting, the shooting in the bar in Orlando, all of those. Yeah, they could be. They could be wound up. I don't know, and I'm not going to say at this point, but what I did notice, and I wanted to bring it to your attention, was that Trump sent out a tweet this morning giving his condolences to the victims of this shooting. Now, it might be too early for him to say, but considering the information I've seen, it seems like he's backing off talking about Islamic terror attacks now. I'll leave that for your perusal, but that kind of an omission troubles me given the circumstances. And I'm not certain that that's a good sign, like so many others I've talked about. Now, as part of the example that this was somehow, at the very least, it was seized upon by the deep state and those opposed to the Second Amendment to start trashing the Second Amendment again. That's going to be a given. No matter whether the situation is a false flag, a situation that just happened, spontaneously with somebody planning it over a period of time that has no influence by the government, or a staged event in that it didn't really happen, that there were actually no casualties. And we have had a few of those in the past. I'm not going to bring those up right now, but I have in the past. But at any rate, y'all remember Philip Mudd? Do you remember him? He was on CNN last night, and Philip Mudd is the former guy in the CIA who took care of the killing part. Okay, that's what he did. Philip Mudd is a dirty, morally corrupt individual, criminal, as far as I'm concerned. And he did something, before, if you remember, he said that the government was going to kill this guy, meaning President Trump. Why he wasn't arrested immediately after, I know they tried to change the semantics. All it was just a euphemism. Hey, if I use that euphemism on Obama, what do you think would have happened? The government under the executive branch works for the president. They're not a separate branch of government. The FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, all of that are acting as if they are an autonomous branch of government. They are not. If they are treated that way, it destroys the checks and balances of the system. They cannot be allowed to act autonomously and without oversight. Where we got this probably came from, that was their intent all along. But this is serious. So Phil Mudd said that, and a lot of other people have said similar things. Clapper, Hayden, Brennan, et cetera, we can go on down the line. These intel chiefs who shouldn't be given the time of day and should all be wearing chains in maximum security prison somewhere. Well, Philip Mudd came out last night. This guy who talks about killing the president and who has orchestrated mass murder across the globe, very likely including American citizens, or attempts to. Michael Hastings, as an example. He cries on CNN last night saying, we have to stop this. We need to get the guns. We need to do away with the Second Amendment. He cries. Remember Obama doing that? The alligator tears? These people don't miss a trick. So, even if this wasn't promulgated by the deep state through MK Ultra or some other, radicalization, I guess I'll just call it, it's still being used, and it's dramatics. Philip Mudd is not to be trusted. And that little dramatic scene last night proved it to anybody who wants to open their eyes and look. So this tragedy in Florida is really, really bad. I wanted to bring up another point to it. I have a very good friend who sent me some local information from Florida. Actually, it's in two parts. One is that a student there, said she was talking to the suspect and yet shooting was still going on. So now I can't verify that. They control all the information so tight. The way we find out later is through things like this and corroborating different things, other things. I'll just put it that way, which is how we did it with Sandy Hook and actually a few others. But at any rate, this girl said that there was still other shooting going on. So that's a problem. And this person that sent me this said this girl better, make sure she has some good security, because like the Las Vegas shooters who said there were multiple shooters, a lot of them ended up dead. These people, like Mudd, are unscrupulous, evil, not just wicked, but evil. The other part of this is something. Remember at Sandy Hook, and I use Sandy Hook, or I could use Columbine, I could use some others, but there's an activity that lends itself to realism. Drills don't. And I'll probably get banned for this, but Sandy Hook didn't have the feel of a real situation in any way, shape, or form. I've mentioned it. Lack of medical urgency, the carrying out of people, all kinds of things. Well, you notice that we had those this time at this school. Gurneys, people rushing about, that kind of thing. But there is also a helicopter video footage, and I wish I could give you this on screen. I'm just not set up for this, okay? There was a video shot from a helicopter, a news chopper, of a group of guys in black, feds probably, loading something into the back of a pickup truck. Now this scene should have been totally secured. Nothing should have been permitted to come in or out except medical personnel, people securing the scene, and victims. All right? Yet mysteriously, and why this chopper was able to get this information up in the news is beyond me. They're bringing something out and loading it into the back of a pickup truck, and it looks like a government truck. What's in the bags and things that they're loading up? Well, the news people thought, what is this, weapons? What's going on here? Have they got weapons from the suspect? No. There were multiple shooters, ladies and gentlemen. This was another team. This was a team. You take the statement by the girl, and you take this little piece of information. It's kind of like the guy that was seen in the woods in Sandy Hook. That was a distraction, I think. That was to get people focusing on that and not realize that the whole thing was a setup. But this time, they're bringing, on a crime scene of a mass shooting, a mass murder, they're bringing stuff out of the school and putting it in the back of this pickup truck. That's obstruction of justice, at the very least. And it's most likely a cover-up by the deep state again. This was a team shooting. It's pretty obvious. This is what your government is being allowed to do. And even Trump is afraid to talk about it. I can't say I blame him. I'd like to think that it's part of a grander strategy, but I'm noticing, again, and people don't want to hear it, but I'm noticing that there is a reticence in the White House. Okay? I'm just going to call it the way I see it. Another thing that happened. How are we doing here for time? Am I being heard okay? Would somebody let me know? I've turned the microphone down. Apparently Scott Anthony's on here. I'll have to start watching my chat if I can. I really need a moderator, don't I? As a matter of fact, I had a friend. He and I were talking about this last night, but that's no time in the foreseeable future for a lot of reasons. Okay, the sound is good. Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't want it to sound too raspy and overmodulated, but I want you to hear me too. This is not a bad little mic. I got it at Best Buy, and I guess that's where a lot of gamers get their equipment. And this isn't the top of the line. This is their store brand basically, but it seems to work okay. Okay, all right. Let's move on here because this is important as well. How many of you have heard about the NSA shooting that happened? Right? Very, very odd. Now, I've been responsible for setting up a lot of security cordons, security operations. For instance, I was in charge while I was there of setting up the security for Carlisle Barracks. That's where the U.S. Army War College is. I was responsible for designing and implementing the concrete barricades that you see there now, both the stationary tubular type and the long ones like they use along the highway to separate lanes, right? It's interesting that all of the pictures of this NSA shooting are they don't give you the big look. They're not bad. At least I haven't found one. If somebody has, let me know. Backed off and see what this really looks like. But I'm looking at the angle of the barriers. Ladies and gentlemen, that vehicle was trying to leave the NSA. It wasn't trying to get into the NSA. Now, I had another individual, and I've asked him for some information to verify it, that apparently there was a report that not only was the vehicle trying to leave the NSA, which is the way I view it now with where the vehicle is. See, if you're entering into an installation, the barriers will V into like this, right? If I'm the gate and this is the NSA behind me where the map is, let me make sure I'm doing this right, that you can see what I'm doing here. Let me just change this for a minute. Okay, so it'll start wide out where the traffic's coming in. It'll start out wide and then it'll narrow in, kind of like a funnel. Then you get through the gate, and then they might have one or two barriers on the other side, but they're going to be facing out this way. Okay, do you see that? That's not what this picture shows. It shows that here's the V coming down like this, and this vehicle, this is a fence here, and these are the barriers coming down. It's wedged in there. That vehicle is trying to leave the NSA. Huh. Now, this individual that sent me the same information also mentioned that the people that were in there were men dressed up as women, at least two of them. I have no idea. Was it somebody like Edward Snowden trying to leave with something? Was it CIA that got caught inside an NSA facility somehow? I don't know. But we're not being told the truth about that. Very simple. That vehicle was not trying to enter the NSA facility at Fort Meade, Maryland. That's not what was happening. Go look at it for yourself. I don't have the answer yet. They say that Trump was briefed about it. Trump's not telling us anything. He still hasn't told us about the Las Vegas shooting, what really happened there. And he's not going to tell us about this. And on the situation with the Florida shooting, he just gave his condolences. How come he didn't say it was Islamic ISIS activity? Or at least this guy was radicalized that way. Not a peep. Not a peep. Yes, I'm worried, ladies and gentlemen. I'm worried. As I said a few days ago, 5G's coming down, nanotech, wet works, surveillance. And on the surveillance deal, Alex Jones broke this years ago, that the TVs and all that were able to watch you and listen to you. And everybody laughed at him. And then General Petraeus, who I had worked for at some point in time, who was at this point that I'm talking about was the director of the CIA, talked about your appliances being able to spy on you. And that was the first time an official had really said something that backed up what Jones said, but then that was quickly, poo-pooed. Not poo-pooed, but kind of, was made lower in the news. Well, now they've come out and basically said that, yeah, your smart TVs are going to be able to spy on you. They've said it. All right? So here we go. Again, the surveillance grid. I mean, can you imagine if and you can't turn it off in your TV. So ladies and gentlemen, you grown-ups out there, you adults, you better be careful what you're doing in your bedroom at the very least, and maybe around your house. If you've got a TV, a smart TV in your bedroom, I guarantee you that if you have ever brought any attention to yourself, or the deep state looks at you, and even if they don't, it might just be a friend of yours who's curious, they're going to be watching you. I don't care what the laws and the regulations are. They're going to be doing it. So it's here. Do you hear Trump talking about it? No, he's pushing more for the surveillance state. This is a wicked game. No, it's an evil game. I said once before that Trump, he's like the guy, the sapper that goes in and the enemy has the Claymore mines facing towards us, and he goes in and he reverses them so it goes after the enemy. In other words, using the system that they put in place against them. What the scriptures say, the pit you dig for others, you will fall in yourselves, that principle. And I'd like to believe that. I'm not saying that makes it right, but to increase the surveillance state at this time, to increase it, to fund it more, to not defund the black ops, rhetoric versus what you see on the ground, ladies and gentlemen. Do I look serious today? Yeah, I am. Okay. It looks like everything here is looking all right. Let's see if I can get back to the chat room without causing a problem. Not that I'm ready to take questions, but I want to go here. And I don't think this is going to be a long broadcast today. Of course, I've said that before. Lots of nastiness going on out there. People are being accosted. I'm going to tell you something. By and large, the right, the conservative people, normally don't go out and attack others in the way of attacking their personality, their character, falsely accusing them of things that they don't do. Normally, that doesn't happen on the right, on the conservative side. But it is a favorite tactic of those who follow the left and Saul Alinsky. You can pretend to be a libertarian, but your fruits will show who you are. So if you're out there, if you know of people on Twitter, YouTube, or just in the society who are attacking you and your basic character and personality, twisting things to make you sound something other than what you really are. Things are easy to twist. I'll show you one of those in a minute. That's a Saul Alinsky tactic. So they're saying that they're conservatives when they're not. It's the fruit. By their fruits you shall know them. And this is something that's been going on during this entire Q thing and B thing, which I hope that you've gone and seen monographs. It's actually his October Rains channel. His information on how he's uncovered B and this whole thing. And I'm not really going to cover that here, because if you can't see the forest for the trees, I can't help you anymore. Okay? I have no way to put it up and go through it point by point and show you. But there are connections between this B person and the Washington Pundit, which appears to be a conservative libertarian organization, but they're very closely allied with the Obama Foundation. And if you missed that, you need to go back and look at it. The other part of Monty's thing here is that this B character has been around since 2016 at the Washington Pundit. There's no way, not the Washington Post, the Washington Pundit, there's no way that Monty and I created this character. And then after what them posted about that myself and Mike Cernovich and Jack Posobiec have been outed, Trump doesn't do stuff like that. And he would never permit his people to do something like that, not to his supporters. All right, and not with the way things have been twisted around about what we're doing. There's no way. What's really happened is that members of the IC have infiltrated these people, or they were like this anyway. They were members of the Democratic Party before and then pretended to change over, and they're really subversives. I'm not going to sit here and name them because I don't need to. I'm not going to point my fingers out. I've done enough of that. Okay. If you want to find out what it is, it's pretty easy to do. Go on Twitter, go on YouTube, you can figure it out. I'm telling you what the fruits are when they're evil or when they're good, how to tell the difference. And these guys are acting like Saul Alinsky tactics, the left, Marxist tactics. Attack a person's character and tell, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. In my case, they bring up these things in the past, and it's probably jealousy more than anything else. But the bad thing is that they're starting to go after people that believe. I don't want to say believe that give some credence. I'm going to lower this down real because I don't want anybody to think that I'm a know-it-all. I'm certainly not. But these people give myself, Monty, Scott Anthony, True Pundit, and others credence. That these supporters of ours, and a lot of you are listening right now. You supporters out there give us a lot of credence, right? Well, you do. These people, of course, won't, and they've got these Saul Alinsky Democratic operatives who play to be conservatives and are not, but have even said that they're FBI, or CIA connected, which should be a red flag there one way or another because we know how corrupt those organizations are. But these good folks, you supporters, and I'm not going to name you here. One lady in particular knows who I'm talking about, and she's listening, I know. You have been attacked relentlessly and wrongly by these people merely for saying that you want to give us credence to some extent. The left can't have that. It's not the libertarians, it's not the right, it's not the conservatives that would do that tactic. It's somebody pretending to be a conservative or a libertarian who is not. Have I made myself clear on that? And these people have been the bad people that are committing these false witnesses, false accusations, character assassinations, etc., have actually been threatening people in that regard. They say that their families have been threatened and I'm not saying it's ever good to threaten anybody's family, okay? But when you attack someone like that, or you attack somebody and then it's like the schoolboy fight, right? The bully comes up and he hits the nerd kid, and the nerd kid, in self-defense, punches back. But who do they always see throwing the second punch? The nerd kid, right? That's a Saul Alinsky tactic, and that's what these people have done. So you have a lot of folks in our community that are good people, that want the truth, that do all they can to spread the truth. And not all of us may agree with each other, and that's a good thing. But it's not a reason to attack somebody else, especially their character, their personality, or make false witness, false accusations against them. That's unnecessary, and it's evil. And if you see people doing that, you need to reject them. So, I was going to show you something, and I don't normally do this. One of the things these people have done is, they brought up so much of my, so many of my websites and all sorts of things that actually, I don't use YouTube. I don't use this to sell anything, but I've mentioned a few times about the books I've written or my videos or whatever, and my sales are going up because these guys are bringing so much attention to this stuff. And I'm thinking, geez, man, just exactly the opposite that they thought was going to happen. Well, they're using on one of my websites where I do some, and actually I haven't used it for years. I first developed it back, I think it was about 2011 or so, because I wanted to kind of go more professional in the video area and in the publication and the media area. I had written, I'd done several videos, I'd written several books, I was involved in doing some documentaries and things like that. Most of you know about it. Well, there was a drama section to this website, there was an adventure section, a historical section, and a children's section. Well, these guys want to make a pedophile out of me so bad that they went on there and they said, look, Potter does children's videos and he insists that you send him cash for these videos. Now, again, I didn't go looking for this, okay? One of you supporters out there sent this information to me. So these guys that are doing this, and I think everybody knows who they are, I didn't go looking. I don't waste my time. But when people send me stuff, I go, oh, that's interesting. Now, one of these videos that I had, by the way, the reason why I took cash is if you ordered online from that website, I don't have a credit card machine. I don't have PayPal. I don't use all that. So I told you had to send cash, which really means, of course, checks or money orders, right? But they make a big deal like that, like, oh, this is nefarious. This is, he's selling child porn or something like that. Well, if anybody knows me, no, I like women. I think my background proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, that I'm a woman lover. I like women, okay, not children. But this is there are real pedophile rings out there. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, what do? When they do these pedophile things, they'll accuse you of it. The old Saul Alinsky tactic again. They accuse you of something they do to take the heat off them, okay? Well, okay, by their fruits you shall know them. This should raise some major questions about these people that are doing this. And frankly, when I look at their pictures, man, they look like pedophiles to me. I'll tell you what, they sure as hell do. But let me show you this. I put it on my phone. I don't know how easy it'll be for you to see it. And I'm not doing this to tell you to go buy it. It's a very short movie. I'll tell you a little background on it. My daughter was very young at the time, and she was tasked with writing a story. And she came up with this story about Santa when he was a young man before he got old. But he still had his back hurt because he was doing so much work. And so his wife suggested, Mrs. Santa Claus, that he go and find the elves in the mountains of Europe and ask them if they'll help him and come back to the North Pole and work. So the name of the video, it's very short. I kept it true to her story. The story from changing it from the written form, which was really cute, to the final video. It was only like 15 minutes. It was like the old short cartoons, a little longer, but at any rate. And it's called Santa Finds His Elves. Now, it's on Amazon, okay? And this isn't a child porn movie. This is so crazy, but this is how they twist things. They make innuendos, and then they never back it up. Let me put this up. I got to bring up my other screen here so I can make sure I'm doing this right. Here it is. This is on Amazon. Do you see that? I don't know if it'll focus on it or not. Let's see if I bring it back a little bit. Maybe it will. Anyway, it's on Amazon. Let me see if I can bring it a little closer. So it's for sale on a public forum. You can buy it for it's $11. Okay, and they want to say this is child porn. Folks, you got to ignore these people. You really do. I mean, if you want to go down that road and waste your time, and everybody that's associated with them, they're so concerned about. I don't know if they're worried about the fact that, we have so many followers, which has never been an issue for me. Maybe they think they can take some from me. I wouldn't care if they did. They just don't understand why I do this. And I think the same goes for Monty and Scott Anthony and anybody else, right? Pardon me a minute. Yeah. So, if their motivation isn't jealousy, then they're being guided by black hats in the deep state. And I'm not going to say anything more about it. I want you to know there are people out there that are genuinely afraid because these people have attacked them unrighteously and actually approaching a criminal type of activity. So all of those who are out there, I'm going to ask you, who are supporting what we are trying to do. We're not going to be 100% perfect. And when I say we, I mean myself. Again, Scott Anthony, Tracy Bean, all the people that I tell you to follow. American Investigative Reports, American Intelligence Media, Betsy and Thomas. I really have a lot of respect for these people. And you can get excellent information from them. You don't need to go solve puzzles. I guarantee you. Okay? I guarantee you, you don't have to do that. And as a matter of fact, as I've said, the puzzle thing is all a cultic experience now. And if you just step back and look at it, you'll find out that that's true. When you know when a person's a tyrant, when you can't challenge them, you can't question them. And now we're being told we can't question. Okay? That should tell you everything you need to know. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to bring up here today. Oh, I suppose I ought to talk about this. I wasn't going to do this, but this was another attack. And I only bring this up because I want you folks to know I'm an open book. Over the years that I've been doing YouTube, I don't suppress things. If somebody asked me directly, I'd tell them. But I didn't want that to be the subject of our discussions because big things are going on and we need to be aware of that. There was an individual, again, I won't say his name. Let me go back a little bit. So there was a lady who asked me about my background, and I said, well, there was a show that came on TV, and it was called Big Love, and Big Love was based on me, at least partially. Oh boy, well, they go to Wikipedia. These people, they go to Wikipedia and other places, and they look up and they say, oh no, it wasn't Potter, it was the Dargers. Well, I know the Dargers personally, at least I did back then. Let me tell you the real history of this, because this is how you twist information, again, like they did with the Santa finds his elves thing. This is how you twist information and turn something that's legitimate and honest into, a scandal. So this is what really happened. I wrote my autobiography, which, by the way, you can get on Amazon. It's out of print, so you're going to pay through the nose for it. I've seen some of those copies be up as high as $300, $400, $500. And no, I'm not going to redo it. No, I'm not going to do that. So at any rate, but they're available if you want it. I might come out with a digital copy at some point, a PDF, and let people have it. And I'll probably just give it away. I might just do that. That you can get, have me send it to you on an email or something. But at any rate, so I wrote this in 1996. So today it's kind of out of date anyway. But in about 2002, it was right after I got back from overseas, or very, very shortly after, there was a dear friend of mine who was approached by the producers of this show, the people who were getting it wound up. And this is long before the Dargers started their stuff, and as long before the show. In other words, they're doing the planning to do this series. So they contacted her and they said, do you know anybody that we could talk to get some material? And she said, yeah, Roy Potter. So they called me, okay, and we talked on the phone, and they said, we'd like to have a copy of your book. We need some material. We'll pay you for it. And I said, nah, it's not important. I just assume the information go out there. I would like to see some of your work. If I could ask for that, before you put it on the air, just so I know, is this going to be a hit piece? And they go, oh no, you don't always believe them when they say this, but this one was different. Said, oh no, this isn't a hit piece. This is going to be a really positive show. It's going to be good. I think you'll like it. And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to trust you. Like I said, it doesn't make any difference. So they got my book and thanked me for it and all that. So I was in on the early planning stages of this thing. I don't remember the producer's name. It was like Rachel something, something like that. It's been a long time ago. But again, this is before even the Dargers had their book out. But I had visited the Dargers many times. Oh, and another reason that I didn't, and they said, well, can we come and do an interview with your family? This was the key point. And I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, I have one wife. I wrote that book in '96. All this stuff happened in the '80s. So, there's nobody here for you to use for marketing. And then, there just isn't. And so there are a lot of independents like me. I was what they call an independent. And so they started looking around again. They asked me who they should go for to have this marketing thing. Well, at any rate, the Dargers were involved in a procedure, both legal and some other things, where they were kind of just starting to come up on the radar around 2005 or something like that, just before the show went on. And the Dargers were a young family at the time. I knew the man's father. That's the side that I knew, and they looked at this family. Wives are beautiful. The husbands, great. They're independents. But they never ran for public office or anything like that. All the things on Big Love, at least the first few series that you see, a lot of that was taken from my material. I ran for sheriff, for instance, in Salt Lake County in 1986. So that political involvement that they showed in Big Love actually came from my story. But anyway, because, that I wasn't marketed, because I wasn't somebody that could show off a big family, I wasn't used to market the program or whatever. Of course, the Dargers were, and I'm happy that they were. The whole thing turned out very well, but the idea that I was lying about the situation is just totally absurd, because they don't know the backstory, right? So I thought I should let you know that. Normally I won't do stuff like that, but this time I did. I did go on Wikipedia after this happened. I thought, how did this get out of control? And it says right there in Wikipedia where it talks about the Dargers, and it says they helped to inspire the show. Helped to inspire. They weren't the sole inspiration for the series. It's just a funny thing. Corey Brown and his family that came up later, you probably saw that series. I forget the name. Sister Wives, I think it was the name of it, something like that. I'd never met Corey, but I know of him, and I've communicated with his friends, because I've been out of that, like I say, for a long time. I have a lot of respect for a lot of those people, though. And no, they're not pedophiles, they're not child molesters. They like women, okay? No, they adore children, and they're very nurturing. Now, there are bad people, and they're not really considered what a lot of people, and this is just historical information, they're not considered FLDS, fundamentalists. They're really not. They're independents. The FLDS are more associated with a group that's down in Colorado City, primarily in southern Utah and northern Arizona. There have been some problems in those peripheral groups. I admit it. That's why I never joined any of them. It was really obvious to see that. But just because there are people in there, they're not all bad. Just because a Catholic priest molests a boy, not all Catholics are bad. But you see how they try to twist it to make it sound that way. So the point is that no, I can guarantee you that just like in any other society or part of society, if people find out that they're molesting kids, they're going to take care of street justice one way or the other. All right. Done with that. Okay. I just thought I'd cover some of that just for the heck of it. Okay, I'm going to go back to the chat room now. I think I'm done, and we'll see if you guys have any questions I can answer. Okay. Okay, so I'm not even going to address the monograph thing. I think Monty's handling that just fine. By the way, we were worried about Monty. He kind of disappeared there for a while. I know he's working on his music project. And that's another thing. Monty's music is outstanding. No evil man can possibly come out with the music that Monty does. I just hope he puts it all into an album because it's really that good. But anyway, he had kind of gone under the radar for a while. He was concerned that because of his exposure of this whole thing with B and Q and their ties to the Washington Pundit and the Obama Foundation, that they would come after him, and that's a genuine concern. So, and certainly their proxies have done it. These other guys that are attacking us on the periphery, right, and calling us all these names and accusing us of stuff. But at any rate, he did start tweeting earlier in this morning. I think it was about midnight, I guess. I didn't see that. I finally had to get some sleep. It had been days since I had slept well. But he's apparently out and about now, so I'm happy about that. And so, Monty, if you're listening, I'm glad you're okay. He is going to cover this information on this whole connection later. A lot of people, Monty is so intelligent that sometimes he forgets that his audience can't quite see what he's pointing out, and you can't see the forest for the trees, and that's what happened here. There is no doubt that there are connections between the Obama Foundation, the Washington Pundit, and the current Q and B. And people will try to downplay that, but it's there. And when we see the conduct of Q and B attacking, myself, Michael Cernovich, it was by innuendo on Tracy Beans. That came up from another thing where Q didn't actually say that, but the innuendo was all there and that kind of stuff. It's definitely immature people that are running that whole program right now, leftist activists. And I don't think there's any doubt about it. Go ahead and use it for red pilling, that's fine. And I'm not waffling on it. I mean, I use the Washington Post. You're not going to red pill anybody with the Washington Post normally, but I'll still go and look at the information and weigh it. Okay, you have to. So regardless of whether it's a bad source or not, if you're not going to use your intelligence and your reason and your heart and your mind, connect the two and work through it, and you get deceived, that's not my fault. So don't say I'm waffling back and forth. I've warned from the very beginning two things: that Trump needs to prove by action on the ground that he's serious, not by his rhetoric. That's the first thing I said, and I've been saying that for over a year. And the second, and I keep saying it, because he's a politician now and he needs to hear it. And the second thing I said was that the entire Q thing could become a cult. I fled from cults. Most religions, a lot of born-again Christian places, a lot of, I don't want to name any, that wouldn't be fair, but a lot of these groups, you ask a question or you go against the established status quo, the dogma, and you're labeled a blasphemer and apostate. That's how cults work, okay? And I saw that was going to happen with Q, and I was absolutely 100% right. Not saying that the initial Q wasn't real, but it's been infiltrated, there's no doubt about it, and it's being used to divide people. Perfect example about what's happening to Monty and myself. Okay, let's see if we got anything here. I'm not a polygamist anymore. This was in the 80s, but I'll tell you what. You think that's so bad, and I know this is off topic here to some extent from what everybody wants to hear. What do you think General Petraeus was? Wow, he had a mistress, and he was married. And his mistress was married. You don't need to attack me for this, okay? I don't really care if you do, but polygamy isn't sick. If you study the Bible, and if you understand Hebrew on top of that, you'll know that it was a form of matrimony that was allowed by God. Oh yeah, there were some bad examples. The first Lamech, right? Shows you I know what I'm talking about. Lamech had that situation. He was a bad guy, and his kids didn't turn out too well. But guess who else was? And if you go into a hotel, you find their Bibles all over the place. The Gideons. Go look up Gideon. Okay? I'm just giving you a hint. No, it's not evil. It's an adult consenting relationship. You may not like it. All right? But I don't like gays and lesbians. But I'm not going to waste my time attacking them. If they're adults, okay. All right? I don't necessarily think that's good for society. Normally, plural marriages, polygamy, if it's done right, it's actually polygyny, not polygamy is like, a group marriage almost. Polygyny is one man, several wives, and then polyandry is one woman, many men. And that happens in India, by the way. they usually die out because it's self-destructive, obviously, because you can't propagate your posterity. You know, it's a dying birth rate. So God is about increase, not decrease. So no, it's not evil. It's how it's used, just like anything else. If I see a Muslim, you know, we see how they beat their wives, right? They beat them into submission. But I've got to admit, I know some Islamic people that adore their wives and treat them with a lot of respect. So, you know, when you fall into a category where you throw a blanket over everything, you're really doing yourself a disservice and everybody else. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all that with David and Bathsheba. Believe me, I know a lot more about this, and I mean, I could give a seminar on the Bible, on Hebrew, on Greek, on the Sumerian cultures, ancient civilizations. But the guy that I really enjoy watching on that is Jordan Sather. So he doesn't get into the Hebrew stuff so much, but I don't know, maybe one of these days. Okay. Let me see what's going on here. If you don't like what Roy is saying, don't be here. Yeah, that's right. I'm not. You know, I'm not twisting your arm to stay. You got to hear, listen to my take on things. No, go away. If you don't like it, go away. Thank you for saying that. And my supporters understand. I think most people are reasonable. When we're growing up, we experiment, right? Sometimes we're idealistic. Sometimes we get off on the wrong track. Sometimes, you know, we've got to you know, try our own sales. So these people that are attacking, you know, that's just. But like I say, I don't go looking this stuff up. People are sending it to me, and so to be polite, I look at it and I say, well, okay, maybe I ought to bring something up about that. But you better. I'll tell you about these guys that are doing this stuff. You better stop attacking the women. You better stop attacking the women. You know, I can handle a lot of stuff. But you start attacking women and making them afraid, I don't even know who these women are. But you know what? You're pressing it. You're pressing it. You better knock it off. You're the cowards. To go attacking women just because they support me, just because they want to give credence to what I say, you attack a woman for doing that, you're evil. And that's obviously the case. That's fruit. And your fruit sucks. I'm not going to let it get me angry, which it could very easily. Okay, all clear now in Florida. Again, notice the anomalies between that and Sandy Hook. And the Virginia shooting the reporter. Boy, wasn't that a joke. I could show you some things on that. That was definitely a staged event, that one was. Okay. Roy, talk Q, damn it. You want me to talk? People are getting tired of Q. I said I was going to get off of that a long time ago. Just be wary, okay? They have the current Q and the current B have ties. Like I said, Monty's already revealed it. Go look at To Be or Not to Be on the October Rains channel. He doesn't just paint it out for you. You got to use your noggin to realize what he's showing you. But it's all there. And one of the big keys is the accusation, as I've already said, that he and I created this character B, which makes absolutely no logical sense. Why would you create something that supports Q if you have questions about Q? That doesn't make any sense. He shows that B is not a recent creation, that B has been around at least since November of 2016 and was on the Washington Pundit site. Talk about bad investigators. So, you know, you just got. Again, if somebody's attacking somebody, that's your first warning. Hey, look out. They're not talking issues. They're talking personalities. They're not talking principles. They're defaming personalities. First clue that something's wrong somewhere, okay? Oh, somebody said, what? I'm full of shit? Well, we all have some, you know. And we all got a little bit. Okay, Reed Scott's post. Okay, I don't know if I can find it. This is let's see, Roy Reed Scott's post. Reference McGuire. Okay, McGuire Air Force Base. Okay, so you'll have to pardon me here for a minute. I'm going to look for Scott's post here. My chat's going, Roy, Scott Anthony has news. 8 died in a car wreck. Trump does not support Q. I have heard that. I have not seen him actually say it, but I have heard that he actually said they don't. But I have not been able to verify that. Okay, somebody's saying here, yeah, Q and analysts will make mistakes. I agree with that. But you got to understand, when you have us looking at what's going on here, there's been a lot put out by Q that is just, it's nonsense. Yeah, I'm looking for Scott now. They're saying that he's trying to get my attention. Again, I should have a moderator. Okay, still not seeing anything here. AG Sessions is live on the shooting. Again, I don't trust Sessions. Boy, his Bliss, I haven't seen you for a long time. McGuire alarms, jets scrambled, all quiet now. Okay, that's from a lava lamp. And I'm sorry I missed Scott's thing. Like I say, I've slowed the chat down so that I can see these, and it's not coming back up right now. So, but apparently he's saying that, and he wanted me to talk that there's been an incident at McGuire Air Force Base of some sort. They were even scrambling jets. Where is McGuire? It's up around New Jersey. It's somewhere in the Northeast. I wasn't an Air Force guy, so I don't keep a whole lot of touch on the Air Force bases, but I think it's in New Jersey. Somebody can correct me here if I'm wrong. Roy is a narcissist. I love this. You know, it's fascinating to see how this stuff works. Okay, I'm not getting Scott's thing. All right, everybody, I'm not sure what Scott was talking about. Apparently there is a problem at McGuire Air Force Base. So you probably want to go see what that is. Like I said, there's a lot of this that's going to be happening. They're keeping your attention off by this silliness of accusing people, attacking people, giving you nonsense in the news, and in other places, and you're not able to see what's really happening. Right now, as I've titled this video, there's omission in the news, not just in the mainstream, but in the alternative media as well. I'm not sure it's on purpose in the alternative media, because sometimes they kind of feed off the mainstream media, but I've noticed a real downtick in good information, even on InfoWars. I've been really disappointed in InfoWars in the last few weeks that there hasn't been good. I mean, it's like the Bundy thing. You know, the only person there that really covers that is David Knight, who I met at Bundy Ranch. He and I actually discussed these things. All right. Yeah, Valentine's Day Massacre working towards gun control. Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing it. Anything else here? Yeah, McGuire is in New Jersey. I was correct. Okay. All right. I think we're done. Poor Scott. He, like I say, I don't see it coming up, so I'm not going to hold everybody around. If Scott has something to say about it, I'm sure it's absolutely necessary. I apologize I missed it, but you can go find out for yourself now that I can alert you about it, that there's something about McGuire Air Force Base, scrambling of jets, some other things that have happened that you need to pay attention to today. Okay? Again, don't forget, they're trying to start a world war with North Korea. They're trying to start a world war with Russia. If we have an enemy anywhere, it's China and North Korea. Not North Korea, as we've been telling you, and this information was true, but I knew about it long before it came up on the Q thing. That North Korea is the fantasy land for the deep state, particularly the intelligence community, the CIA. All right? Okay. I think that's it. Okay, well, we're not going to get into any more religious discussions here today. I'll do a religious series at some point, okay? There are all kinds of scenarios there, but it's really not like that. There's another thing that's going on there, and a lot of people either miss it or they just don't want to talk about it. Okay, Lava Lamp needs to talk to me. I don't know how we're going to do that, Lava Lamp. Sorry, I don't know how we're going to do that. Okay, I'm not going to hold everybody up. McGuire Air Force Base, something's going on. Scott, I'm sorry I missed your chat in there. Maybe you could put it up on Twitter, and we'll just retweet the heck out of it. If it's something I need to, I'll come back up and do a real quick live stream on YouTube. Okay, guys? All right. Hey, thanks for coming today. I appreciate you all doing this. I know you have to put up with a lot of nonsense, a lot of diversions. And I don't mean to make it sound like, we've got to cover these things and beat them like a dead horse. But I'll try not to let all this other nonsense divert us off what's important. But I cover it because those tactics, being able to recognize what they are, is part of what I'm about. Showing you, opening your eyes, opening your mind, and letting you see how wicked, evil people operate. Or, if they are innocent, which I doubt, if they are innocent, how wicked, evil people manipulate them for their purposes. All right? Okay. Roy, someone is gaming you. Someone's gaming all of us, Lava Lamp. I mean, I have to use my own insights, my own judgment. Okay? People might not like the way I make those judgment calls. But I don't do it in a vacuum, Lava Lamp. Maybe you have some information I need. DM me on Twitter. Okay? Do that. And we can talk about it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming again. I really do appreciate us being able to do this. One of these days, I hope to have a call-in thing. Of course, now I just use my phone, and it's kind of low-tech. But, we do the best we can with what we got, right? There are people out there I love immensely. I can't say I love all of you because I don't know you all, right? But the people out there that I do know, because I'm careful how I use that word, all right? You don't want to overplay it. Then you're not real. But I love a lot of you out there. I appreciate all of you, okay, that come here, even the guys that want to raise hell because it shows that we're over the target, okay? It's kind of like the flak, on the airplane. God bless you. Appreciate all you do. God bless the restoration of the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. God bless the Second American Revolution. Stay loud. Even Trump's starting to be quiet here. Things are dropping off the radar. Always be skeptical. The United States of America, the people need to stay skeptical. What does that mean? You force them to do what's right. You don't just trust that they're going to do it. You make sure that they're going to do it. You be from Missouri, right? You don't accept it on blind faith. You got to see it to believe it, all right? Okay, so do that. And again, God bless President Donald Trump and his righteous endeavors. He is up against, and I still believe he's what he claims to be, but I think he's running into some real problems here. He needs to stop this foreign intervention by the CIA and the deep state, and taking our resources and doing this nonsense of nation building. He said he was going to get out of that. He needs to look inward, 100%. Project our force outward for protecting us and our people abroad, our friends abroad. But this is ridiculous. This is getting out of hand again. But bless him in his righteous endeavors. All right. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Things are happening even if you don't see it. Remember, they're omitting information now. They're not just covering silliness. They're omitting important stuff. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Don't know when that'll be, but it won't be too long from now. Thanks for everything.